I interviewed Colin Maupin many times. If you're a regular on my channel, you must have seen my interviews with him. And before he left to Russia, we also had a chat. He is the leader of the delegation from the United States to World Youth Festival 2024 in Russia. And here is the question that he asked Vladimir Putin, and then Putin's answer. I find this interesting, so I want to share with you. And when he's back, I sure will ask him again. I will interview him again. So here it is.
Please introduce yourself.
I'm the leader of the United States delegation. I'm representing the Center for Political Innovation. And I would like to just thank you from the bottom of my heart for that dynamic interview you gave to Tucker Carlson, in which you showed many, many young Americans a different kind of leadership, because our politicians and our leaders in the United States, they speak in sound bites, they speak in terms of scandal and gossip, but you presented a long-term vision, a scientific view of statecraft, and by getting through to young Americans, you made a difference. Many people who would never have listened to anything you had to say or heard another perspective heard you because of that interview. Now, getting to my question, things between our two countries are not good at this point. Before we left, we had to have a press conference at the United Nations. We are concerned about being prosecuted. There are 3 Americans that have already been charged and are facing prosecution, possibly 15 years in prison, simply because they attended a conference like this in Russia, the Uhuru movement, they're called. And we are concerned because I know that I speak for the majority of the American people when I say that we do not want our tax money dumped into this conflict in Ukraine any longer. We do not want our country to continue to deteriorate internally while our leaders waste money on prolonging this war. I'm frightened by what the Biden administration is doing, not just in Ukraine, but also on Taiwan and on the Korean Peninsula. And I really do see gatherings like this as a potential road to peace. And what I have seen at this festival has blown my mind. The amount of young volunteers that you have here, people who have stepped up, who love their country and want to just come forward and put together dynamic events like this. What kind of role can events like this and young diplomacy activities like this play in helping set the stage for maybe changing the dangerous direction our leaders in the United States are taking things against the majority of the wishes of the majority of the people of our country? Thank you.
The United States of America is a huge and unique country. In its own way, over 300 years, in just 300 years, which is a small period of time compared to our history, but thanks to the talents of the Americans, it became a superpower, which is an obvious fact. We know outstanding American politicians, we know outstanding American business people, cultural activists, which is an obvious fact. We used to be allies during 2 world wars as we fought Nazism and fascism. What happened recently? After the war, after the alliance, the United States and the Soviet Union started dividing the world, and they did so successfully. And based on this balance of powers, they created international relations and created the modern system of international law. Then the Soviet Union ceased to exist for a number of reasons. I will not go into detail, but they were mainly internal reasons. There is one superpower remaining, represented by your country. The way your elites use this monopoly to global domination is dubious. In my opinion, the United States failed to bear this burden of responsibility that they happen to bear. They created monopoly, strengthened it. I don't mean the American people, I mean the ruling elites. While strengthening their monopoly, they soon faced a situation where the overwhelming majority of countries disliked it. And so, step by step, it became obvious to everyone that there is resistance to the forming global order. Many, including your allies, they are keeping their silence here. They are afraid of speaking up because they're dependent on major economies, on mass media. There are a lot of dependencies, but believe me, I know what I'm talking about. Even allies dislike it too. And so they faced failures and disturbances. The ruling elites of the United States, after achieving the monopoly of power, decided that the previous system of international relations that was built on the outcomes of World War II is no longer satisfying for them because the balance of power evolved, and hence they decided to change the international legal order. And when it became clear that not everyone is okay with this, by this I mean Iraqi developments, they happened without UN Security Council sanctions. The same applies to Syria, Yugoslavia, former Yugoslavia, without going into detail about root causes. There were no decisions or resolutions of UN Security Council. The United States did let this genie get out of the bottle. If they did so, why can't other countries protect their national interests in the same way? As for Yugoslavia, my counterpart told me on multiple occasions, yes, we did so without UN Security Council resolution, but there was a waging 8-year war, bloodshed, something must be done. When Russia, however, decided to protect their people in the Donbass, which faced a war with the elderly, with children being killed, why cannot Russia do the same while protecting their own people, not some thousands of kilometers away from their national borders, instead on the border of their own country, and people were waiting for us to help without going into detail. My point is to understand that the world cannot be controlled from one pole, and which is detrimental to that pole itself as it undermines the foundation. And in the interview given to your compatriot Mr. Carlson, I said that dollar is being undermined as they forbid to use dollar for settlements. They seek quick results. Instead of gaining one, they only undermine their national currency. They attain an opposite result, and this is true for many areas. In my opinion, this is a wrong policy. But the youth, returning to your question, can do many things without interfering in domestic processes, without describing or giving descriptions of the behavior of presidential candidates. It is just a part of the national culture, but youth can contribute in building state-to-state relations. What would be the procedure? They can just speak up domestically, within law, within their constitution. It is the only way, the only option. In no way do we call upon any activities of disobedience, but it is a possibility to speak up in their own country. And I think this is a way to go. In my opinion, this is going to pave the way for non-state forms of contact in order to create conditions for improving relations on state-to-state level too. Thank you very much for your question.